Hello, BookTube. Well, I've got some mail to share with you here. I'm afraid that our video chats today may be on the short side. It's 110 degrees Fahrenheit here in Boston. It's just unrelenting. So that outside of the little air-conditioned bubbles that I have made, it's untenable. Absolutely untenable. Which is causing a rancorous bean. She is fairly rancorous. She's fairly down in the dumps. She's too good-natured, really, to be a putz about it, but she wants to go on longer walks. I totally sympathize. The pavement is boiling hot. The air is chokingly blast furnace hot. There's no way, there's no responsible way that I could take either one of us on any kind of a long walk. I have a feeling that probably sometime this weekend, this weather will break. I am now that this has happened, now that we're on the fourth consecutive day of high 90s or triple digits in Boston, when for all of those 4 consecutive days, the weather services in Boston, the local news services, the cable news, the channels and whatnot, they didn't just predict that this wouldn't happen. They are saying that it's not happening. They're saying that it's not happening. That the thermostat you have outside the house is wrong. All the thermostats are wrong. That what you can feel when you step outside the house is wrong. That all of you are wrong. What we're saying, what our corporate overlords say is true. This is not a heat wave. It is not unbelievably life-threateningly hot outside. So I have stopped really looking at that. I'm just sort of crunching data on my own. I'm no meteorologist. I'm no Matthew Capucci. But I'm just, it's not usually that hard. If you're dealing with monsoons or hurricanes or tornadoes, maybe. But for Boston, I think I can look at data myself. And at least then I'm not being lied to. And I have a feeling that this weather is going to continue for another day. But then it looks like there's a front that may shake things up a little, maybe give us a day of relief. A day in the mid-80s would be great. 20 degrees cooler than it is now. A day where I can take my little bean on a walk of any duration would be nice. But in the meantime, I have told her, you know, you're a tiny little thing. If you want to do your business inside the house, it won't inconvenience me at all. And that's great. She's a tiny little thing. I've known little dogs, little beagles, that would have been very grateful for that permission. But she's also a type A tiny little dog, so she absolutely will not do it. Not under any circumstances. Nevertheless, we're not going out again until the sun has gone down below the horizon. After sunset, when the sun isn't in the sky anymore, the temperatures may go down into the high 90s. In which case, that's at least bearable to maybe walk around to get our filthy, sinful business done. But in the meantime, even so, everybody's out and about. There's mail. So we'll go through this mail. There's one box, and we'll see if there's anything of interest. Okay, so this first one is a finished copy. What have we got here? Oh, great. Okay, fantastic. This is a finished copy of something we've already seen. I'm glad that I'm getting the finished copy. Very good. Very good. Okay, so I don't need that. Sorry, I'm a little dazed myself. We just came in from one of those abbreviated walks. We just came inside, and it was stunning. There's just no other word for it. You felt stunned. You felt like somebody punched you in the head. But this is something that we've seen before. Quite a few of you expressed interest in this. This is a novel. This is Vince Pissaro's novel, Crazy Sorrow. And it's got, you know, it's got this lovely finished copy, actually, subdued tones, and a big crowd of people, and the World Trade Center. And we're coming up on the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 terrorist attacks on Lower Manhattan. So let's see here. Okay, so this novel is 20 years after Pissaro's debut novel, Violence, Nudity, Adult Content. And Publishers Weekly called it as thought-provoking as it is entertaining. This story opens in the shadow of the New World Trade Center on July 4th, 1976. I remember it going up. I remember people complaining because it was going to ruin their view. People walk out there down their stoop, they come out into the street, they look down the huge avenue way into the distance, miles into the distance, and they suddenly realize that when these two towers went up, and they were ugly, the towers were ugly, they were just rectangles, that they would block that part of the sky. Hard not to think about those complaints, ironically now, since those same people came out on their stoops and stood in that street to watch those towers come down. Where students George and Anna party with friends on the night of the nation's bicentennial celebration. George instantly falls for the magnetic Anna, and she, soon enough, for him. Quickly they are in love, exploring new ideas, books, records, drugs, the city, themselves. But it is a college romance, soon cut short, and eventually they go their separate ways. The author chronicles the next 4 decades, following George and Anna into adulthood and its pleasures and troubles. Relationships and sexual liaisons, both youthful and mature, failed marriages, parenthood, and careers. As the years go by, one constant remains. The former lovers wonder what happened to each other. Finally, miraculously, they reconnect as the new century is beginning, only to discover that history itself will have a say in whether or not they can stay together. I haven't actually read this yet. It comes out in mid-September, September 14th, so that it can be in bookstores right around the time of the anniversary. I haven't read this yet, so I don't know if the reason that history gets in the way is because both of them are in the World Trade Centers on the morning of September 11th. I don't really know. I'll have to see. I think probably if this novel had come out 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I would have violently objected to that as plot matter, no matter how well it was done, because it would have felt too raw, too recent. But I'm willing to see 9/11. I was willing fairly early on to see 9/11 incorporated into fiction if it's done right. So we'll see. We'll see how much more of it we get. But that comes out soon. It doesn't feel soon. It doesn't feel like we're at the end of August at all. It feels like we're in the middle of July in Abu Dhabi. Let's see what this next one is. Oh, great. Okay, this is Nathaniel Philbrick. I don't think I have a sheet, or if I did, I threw it away. This is Nathaniel Philbrick, Mayflower. He also wrote The Heart of the Sea. I always remember, is it The Heart of the Sea? Yes. Or is it The Heart of the Ocean? I always get the title of his book and the jewel in the Titanic mixed up. So now I want to know. In the Heart of the Sea. Okay. And this is Travels with George, in search of Washington and his legacy. This is Nathaniel Philbrick's new book. And there is our author. How's that for an author photo? Huh? So what have we got here? When George Washington became president in 1789, the United States of America was still a loose and quarrelsome collection of states and a tentative political experiment. Washington undertook a tour of the ex-colonies to talk to ordinary citizens about his new government and to imbue in them the idea of being one thing, Americans. And that tour, as much as any wartime service, gave rise to the old phrase, Washington slept here. In the fall of 2018, Nathaniel Philbrick embarked on his own journey into what Washington called the infant woody country, to see for himself what America had become 229 years later. Writing in a thoughtful first person about his own adventures with his wife, Melissa, and their dog, Dora, Philbrick follows Washington's presidential excursions, from Mount Vernon to the new Capitol in New York, a month-long tour of Connecticut, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Rhode Island, a venture into Long Island, and eventually across North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. The narrative moves smoothly between 18th and 21st centuries as we see the country through both Washington's and Philbrick's eyes. Fantastic. I never got an advance copy of this, so I don't know when this comes out. I'm pretty sure that it comes out in September. Pretty sure this is a September release, probably mid-September. I have reviewed Nathaniel Philbrick once, and now I want to know what it was. Which one of it was his? It wasn't A Way Offshore. A Way Offshore you would think I would have reviewed, because I have a birth. What was it? Was it Valiant Ambition? Was it Valiant Ambition? I don't remember. I'll have to Google it, or you can Google it. Always remember, if you're curious to know what I have written about an author, just go to Google, type in my name, and type in their name. Oftentimes I don't accurately remember, but oftentimes I have to do that. I'm pretty sure I've reviewed this author before, though, but I'm happy to review him again. Gladly, I will read this and review it. So those are 2 finished copies. That's great. Then we'll go to this next one here. These big white envelopes. What have we got here? Oh, great. Oh, fantastic. All right. I don't appear to have a publicity sheet for this one either, but I requested it. And you're going to be able to tell why. This comes out in January. This will be a hardcover release in January, is that right? No. Yes, this will be a $30 hardcover in paper in January. And it is a murder mystery thriller set in Iowa. It's called The Fields by Aaron Young. There you have a stalk of corn, a barn in the background, but everything's dark instead of bright blue. I can only guess how hot it is in Iowa today. It must be 100 degrees. Or maybe not. Maybe the front that I think is coming to New England has already swept through the Midwest. Let's see here. I'll just read you from the cover copy here. It starts with a body. A young woman found dead in an Iowa cornfield on one of the new family farms, still managing to compete with the giants of big agriculture. A very uphill battle. In the agricultural areas of Iowa, which is most of the state, a very uphill battle. Do you keep the family farm running? Do you take government subsidies? Or do you sell out to big agro and either work the land yourself or just take a huge payout and move to town? When Sergeant Riley Fisher, newly promoted to head of investigations for the Blackhawk County Sheriff's Office, arrives on the scene, an already horrific crime becomes personal when she discovers the victim was a childhood friend connected to a dark past she thought she'd left behind. You never want to know the dead body that you find in an Iowa cornfield. The investigation grows complicated as more victims are found. Drawn deeper in, Riley soon discovers implications far beyond her Midwest town. Beautifully written and masterfully crafted, The Fields is a dynamite debut. Oh, this is her debut. Fantastic. Crime fiction at its very best. Now, I'm not going to know about this until next year, but I love the premise, a body found in a cornfield. Oh my, if you have ever ridden a harvester in an Iowa cornfield, so you're up on the seat, you're looking down at the corn as the thing just mows through it, just threshes through it. You'll often think, what would happen if you found a body in this field, or even if you're in a smaller farm and you're harvesting with a smaller machine or even by hand, you wonder what would happen. When you're harvesting on foot, you can't see anything at all when you're cutting it down. And I have been on big harvesters where we were working through a field and scared a bear right out of the corn. So you're just mowing along like that. You're looking down, all of a sudden a bear runs through the corn. Many coyotes, birds of all kinds that just take flight. And you have to guess that you're killing a lot of animals that have lived in that cornfield for the whole of the growing season. So a dead body. What do we know about this author? We know that she was obviously in a really bad mood when she took her author photo. It would kill you to smile, as we say, Ma would say. You have a debut book with Flatiron Books. That's no small thing. Maybe she's just grim. Maybe she's really taking things seriously. Or maybe that is a smile. I've noticed that in the 21st century, what passes for a smile on men and women is often a pained grimace. So I look at somebody's profile on Twitter or on Instagram, and the first thing I think is, okay, so you're constipated, and it's been days now. I really feel for you. And then I think, no, wait a minute, you wouldn't take that picture. If they wouldn't make that your photo, if you were going through a medical emergency. No, you just think that's a proper profile picture. But let's see. So this book is her debut crime thriller. She lives and writes in Brighton, England. She's writing about the cornfields of Iowa from Brighton, England. How interesting is that? Okay, well, I'm, of course, on board. We'll see. I'm not going to get to any 2022 books in 2021, but I'm naturally looking forward to it. Then we have the box, which I'm assuming is another finished copy. And then we'll be done with the mail for today. What have we got? What have we got here? That over there. Oh no, I'm wrong. It's not a finished copy. It's an advanced copy. And ooh, that's not a pub sheet. That's an invoice. Okay, great. Fantastic. Okay, so this is a late October release, October 26th, which I assume is... Is your tongue sticking out, David? Is that what you're just sticking your tongue out at my viewers? Is that what you're doing? I have to assume that that's the last Tuesday in October, and I think I'm going to be reviewing this for the Christian Science Monitor, so it's great to have it. It's bigger than I thought it would be. This is by Neil Langtot, and it's called The Approaching Storm. Roosevelt, Wilson, Adams, and their clash over America's future. And the Adams involved, you might think, Roosevelt and Wilson, of course, you're familiar with from anything like World War I, anything associated with the early decades of the 21st century. The person who's often left out is Jane Addams. So it's great that she's right there. I don't have a sheet for this thing, so I'll just read you the back. The fascinating story of how the three most influential American progressives of the early 20th century, Theodore Roosevelt, Woodrow Wilson, and Jane Addams, split over America's response to World War I. In the early years of the 20th century, the most famous Americans on the national stage were Theodore Roosevelt, Woodrow Wilson, and Jane Addams, two presidents and a social worker. Each took a different path to prominence, yet the three progressives believed the United States must assume a more dynamic role in confronting the growing domestic and international problems of an exciting new age. Following the outset of World War I in 1914, the views of these three titans splintered as they could not agree on how America should respond to what soon proved to be an unprecedented global catastrophe. The Approaching Storm is the story of three extraordinary leaders and how they debated, quarreled, and split over the role the United States should play in the world. I think I'm fascinated. I bet you are too. You history buffs. Look at the size of this thing. This is big. By turns, a colorful triptych of three American icons who changed history, and the engrossing story of the roots of World War I, The Approaching Storm is a surprising and important story of how and why the United States emerged onto the world stage. And I can't wait. Just can't wait. Not only because I'm always up for big, fat histories around the two world wars, but also because the presence of Jane Addams in this story it virtually guarantees that it will be a different angle than the million books that have been written about America's response to World War I. It virtually guarantees it. And if it gets more people to read Jane Addams, that would be great. That would be absolutely great. She was by a wide... I know both Roosevelt and Wilson have reputations as writers as well as presidents, historians as well as presidents. But Jane Addams was handily a better writer than either one of them. Her book about Hull House, if you've read it, and if you've read it, will probably agree with that. But who is Neil Langtot? He's an award-winning historian and author. He's smiling in his author photo, and he has written several books, including Campy, The Two Lives of Roy Campanella, and Negro League Baseball, The Rise and Ruin of a Black Institution. Okay. I don't see a through line. Maybe he found the subject interesting. Fantastic. Great. All right, so there we go. So we've got 2 finished copies and 2 review copies. One is The Approaching Storm. I have a feeling I'm going to like this. We'll see. Much will depend on the author's own felicity with words. The subject could not be better. So we have The Approaching Storm. We have The Fields by Erin Young, her police crime thriller debut, set in the cornfields of Iowa. Fantastic. Fantastic. Then we have Travels with George, Nathaniel Philbrick. No, he won't need an introduction from me. You all know him, and you probably all like him. I certainly do. I don't think I've read a Nathaniel Philbrick book that I haven't liked. And this is about talking. I mean, it'll be a travelogue in part, and that will be fun. But it will also be a study of George Washington at the very dawn of the new nation, which is always interesting. And then finally, Crazy Sorrow by Vince Pissarro, the finished copy of Crazy Sorrow, which comes out in mid-September. And I think I haven't read it, but I think it's probably a little unfair to call it a 9/11 novel. But nevertheless, the resonance there will I'm sure there'll be resonance all throughout it. So I'm sure that knowing what's coming will reverberate through the book at least a little. I don't see how that could be otherwise, but I haven't read it, so we'll see. The Travels with George and Crazy Sorrow, I will. My mail hauls are often my TBRs, and those are going straight to the top of the list for tonight and this weekend. I'm going to get, I'm hoping that I'm going to get one strategic piece of work done extra this afternoon, something that requires turbo boosters. One strategic piece in the puzzle that I will get done this afternoon, and I think if that works, I will be able to read for a huge amount of the weekend without having anything. I would feel penalized if I couldn't write during the weekend. But there's a difference between that and deadline work, and I have a feeling that if I do one little thing this afternoon, I can free myself from any hint of deadline work for the whole of the weekend. And if that's true, I will turn over most of it to reading. A huge amount of reading. So we will see. I will be talking to you this weekend. No, not sure how many videos there will be this weekend. I always say that, and then I always bombard you with videos anyway, because I don't feel right unless I talk to my imaginary booktube friends. But on every Friday, I want you to sort of mentally prepare yourself for a decrease in videos until Monday. I always say that. It ends up not always being true, but just in case. There's a chance now, just as always. So I'm going to wrap this up, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.